evening. This is J.P. Morzullo talking to you from Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I want to, first of all, I always forget the sponsor. So we're sponsored by Wilson Hill Pistol Club. They were established in 1935. They're the oldest continuous pistol club in New Hampshire, and it's on 1732 Lakeshore Road, right here in Manchester. If you want to find out more about it, you just go to wilsonhillpistol.org. So welcome, and as you can see, the real co-host, the real host rather, is not here tonight. He's out on some secret mission again, so I'm not sure when he's going to get back. But tonight I have a friend and somebody that's very interesting, Fred Bramante. Hey, Fred, thanks for coming. Appreciate
my pleasure.
it.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I have a lot to talk to you about.
Great. Looking
so
forward to it.
If I have this right, you at one time ran for governor in primary.
That means I lost.
That you lost, which might have been the best thing ever. And second of all, you were in charge of the state education state commission.
Yeah, it was the
correct?
State Board of Education.
Yeah,
I was the chairman of the state board.
And when was that? What year was that?
Well, I served on the state board, first appointed by Governor Gregg.
Oh, okay,
and then
Benson after that, or?
Benson appointed me chair.
Okay.
And then John Lynch reappointed me. So I've been appointed by Republicans and Democrats, which I'm happy about.
Yeah, which is a good sign.
Yeah,
really.
I think so.
So I had a couple of things that were kind of fun. I went on to a presentation you made to a youth group.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where it was. I didn't get that.
Dover.
Dover, okay. And it was called TEDx Youth.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube, so if you want to follow up after this, please feel free to do it. I think you'll find it very
I think I had the same color shirt.
Well, I want to talk about Daddy's Junky Music Store.
I know the place well.
Why don't you tell our audience, our viewers, exactly how that started, what happened, a little bit about your background. I think you're from Stamford, Connecticut area.
I taught school in Stamford. I'm a New Hampshire person.
Yeah.
My family moved to New Hampshire in 1955 when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And I like telling people that our family was the first New Hampshire family to drive to Massachusetts on Route 93. and the reason we were able to do that was we used to go to see my grandmothers on Sundays, and they lived in Boston.
Right.
And the old West End and the old North End, and and nice Italian neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And so one Sunday morning after church, in my dad's '57 Merc, and red and white, and we were in the car, and 93 was being built.
Okay.
And it wasn't done. Okay.
Right.
And so we pulled up next to the on-ramp. There was a barricade in front of the on-ramp.
I know where you're going with
And
this.
then my dad got out of the car, moved the barricade, went back, put the barricade back. We drove up, and he said, "Who's going to care?" And so we're driving down Route 93, no lines in the road, no signs.
Oh no.
But
some exits, right?
But the road was close to done. We got all the way to Stoneham, Massachusetts, and there was an officer of the law coming in the other direction,
waiting for you.
He was not happy, so he pulled us over, and came up to the car, and he's yelling at my father, and my dad's going, "Oh, I didn't know." I was like, "Yes, you did, Dad. We didn't say that," but so he kicked us off, and we have a great story to tell.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah. So anyway, so we came to New Hampshire, there to Salem back then. There were probably 3,000 or 4,000 residents in Salem at the time.
Oh wow.
Yep, so that was it. So I went to Central Catholic High School in Lawrence.
Oh, okay.
And in my graduation class, I finished 206th out of 212 kids. So I beat 6 kids. So
it sounds like my ranking.
Right. So I like telling people that school taught me that I wasn't very bright, and life taught me that school was wrong. And so I have spent the better part of my life trying to figure out how to redo school, redefine what we know as public education, so that kids like me, the ones that traditionally, and like you,
Yep.
the ones that didn't fit in that traditional model, could be successful in school.
Exactly.
And right now, I saw a study that said that China has more advanced placement kids than we have kids. So we can't afford to throw kids away. We
Right.
got to find a way to get the most out of every single kid. And
Absolutely.
and so that's what I've been working to. But if you'd asked any kid in my school who was the most passionate kid about rock and roll in the entire building, they'd have all said it's Fred.
Exactly.
But no one told me that there was a way to make a living
doing
that, and which is what I did for 39 years. I had Daddies for 39 years. I started Daddies with $600,
Right.
and we went from the smallest of over 11,000 music stores in America to number 15.
Wow.
And it was an
Wow.
it was an amazing ride. It was amazing.
Now, how was it named? I think one of your
My
children.
my son, who was 3 years old at the time. So I was teaching school. I was teaching
At the
eighth.
time,
Yeah. And that fortunately for me, I majored in science, and there's always been these shortages of science
True.
teachers.
Yep.
And so even someone I had a 2.3 GPA, and even someone with as terrible grades in school as I had, majored in science, you could get hired. So I got hired to teach 8th grade science, and
Was it at a public school or
public school.
Public school.
Yep. I remember the day I got hired, driving home in my my brand new Pontiac Le Mans sport convertible.
Oh wow.
And had a positive traction rear end. If you watch Cousin Vinny, right? My
Yes.
aunt had a positive traction rear end. So I had the roof down. It was like 90-something degrees, and I'm driving back, and I had, because I had gotten the job that they
So
hired
excited.
me. I was so excited that I swore that I was going to be the best teacher that these kids had ever had. They were going to love me to pieces, and my first year, those kids chewed me up and spit me out. It was one of the most miserable experiences
graders
of
can do
my
that
life.
to
Oh
you.
my God, it was brutal. So, but I had a couple of fellow teachers that they were my mentors. They didn't know that they were my mentors, but they were my
Sure.
mentors. And they used to tell me, Fred, take it easy. You're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
That next year you're going to get a whole new batch of kids who don't know how bad you are, and you're going to get a chance to start all over again.
Now, what was your salary then? Do you remember?
$8,000 my
So
first year.
I'm gonna relate something to you. So I think I got out of college with a 2.5. So I beat you by a little bit. But I was told the same thing. I grew up in a very wealthy town in Greenwich, Connecticut, and our public schools were so good that even the wealthy sent their kids to our public schools. I mean, they were great. I had no desire to go to school after that because I kept being told, and I have parents-teachers meetings that tell my parents, he's a good guy, he's very enthusiastic, but he's not bright enough to go to college, right? And when I took the college exam, it proved that I wasn't bright enough. But quite frankly, I did well in the verbal part of it and stuff like that, but I didn't do well in the math. And so when I graduated, I went to Dean College, first of all, up here in Franklin. At that time, it was a junior college. And then from there, I went to Sacred Heart University in Bridgeport, actually Fairfield, Connecticut.
Fairfield, I know the school.
Yep, and I commuted. And I was in the first graduating class.
Oh, interesting.
Which is many years ago.
Yeah.
1967.
Wow.
So.
67.
Yeah.
So I had a fellow teacher that went to that school back then.
Who was it?
His name was John Coolish. Did you know that name?
Not sure. We had small classes then,
Yeah.
so I might have known him, but
Okay.
it doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
But then I got a job. I decided to look into science as well. And I got a job at a Catholic school as the science teacher for 8th grade.
Wow.
And I can remember, you were talking about 8th graders and how
Oh,
bad
yeah.
you were. I can remember the principal, who was a nun, saying to me, you're going to do fine, but don't smile before Christmas. That's what she said.
Wow.
Don't smile before Christmas. And I decided, okay, I'll give it a try. And it worked because they thought they couldn't get away with anything because I wasn't really a happy person, So I did that for 2 or 3 years as well. But I always thought that there had to be a better way to teach someone who didn't fit into that little box.
Yep.
And that's something you talked about when you spoke to this group.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd like to, again, why don't you share that? Because I think that's really important for people to understand.
Well, as I mentioned, I tell people all the time that school taught me that I wasn't very bright, and life taught me that school was wrong.
Right.
And when I started Daddy's with $600.
Right.
And I just did it to try and earn a few extra bucks. I was poor as could be. I'm making
Sure.
$8,000 a year.
Yeah.
I had 2 little kids. I went through a divorce, and I got custody of my kids. This is in the mid-'70s. That
Wow.
just didn't happen
Yeah.
back then.
Wow.
So I'm raising these 2 kids on a teacher's salary.
Yeah.
And so I had to find a way to make some extra money because this wasn't going to work. I had a mattress on the floor, my refrigerator, the latch to the door was broken. I had a chair in front of the door to keep the refrigerator door closed.
Wow.
I mean, so it was about as humble a beginning as possible.
So that's when your son named the store Ron. You're right.
So so I found this rental in Norwalk, Connecticut.
Yeah.
It was on the 2nd floor of this 3-story building. The top 2 floors had not been occupied since the 1930s. It was.
I think I saw a picture of that you showed in your thing.
It was. So it was $75 a month, including some of the utilities, and and the landlord told me, "You fix it." So he opens up the door, which was kind of hanging off the hinges.
Oh, no.
We walk inside. A mouse goes running around the corner. There's these piles of bones and feathers of dead pigeons that would get in through broken windows that couldn't find their way. The place should have been condemned. The ceiling was plaster, and the plaster was falling off. It was coming loose. You could hit the ceiling, and the pieces would just fall down.
Wow.
So I went to school. I told him, I'll take it. He says, "You fix it." That's okay. So I went to school the next day, and I told my students, Mr. Bramanti's going to open his own music store. Who wants to help clean and paint? I'll take you to McDonald's. So these kids would raise their hand, take down their telephone number, and then I'd call their parents, tell them, look, this is what I'm doing. And I had my students in there scraping and cleaning and painting.
Gosh.
They would put me in jail for this today. So
yeah, child labor
Exactly.
and what else, right? Exactly.
So one day, we're getting ready to go to do some more cleaning. It was a Saturday morning, and my 3-year-old, my son, he says, "Mom, are we gonna go to Daddy's Junky store today?" And I thought, because I've been trying to figure out a name.
Right.
What am I gonna call it? I didn't like Fred's Music. Nah. So Daddy's Junky store. That's so funny. So I said, I'm gonna call it Daddy's Junky Music
Now, what
Store.
year was that?
1972.
And that's when you started your music store?
That's when I started Daddy's. Yeah.
In Norwalk.
In Norwalk. I was teaching in Stamford.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in 75, that's when my wife and I divorced.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was humble. It was about as humble as it gets. My first year in sales, we did $3,784.
And you remember that.
In sales, yeah. And that was from September to the end of the year.
Yeah.
We got to the point where we were doing more than that per hour, and down the road. And,
Wow.
As
now,
the
what did
company
you
grew.
sell? Just musical instruments, or
Primarily musical instruments and related
guitars
stuff.
and drums?
Yeah, kind of like Music Mill here in Manchester.
Oh,
I don't know if
okay.
you've been into Music Mill.
No, I know where it is. Yeah.
Fabulous store. It's a really great store. So, you know, and we did mostly used stuff, and that at least the original stores that did mostly used, and we maintained that used presence throughout the history of the company, and it was awesome. It was just great. Daddy's grew, and as it so my first year I told you we did 3,000 and change. My second year we did over 13,000. My third year, 56,000.
Wow.
My fourth year, 113,000. So it just kept on going
that's
like
huge.
this. So
That's a huge increase.
It was just going like this. And and as it was growing, there were, people were noticing. And they, you know, I find, you know, myself, they're calling me up. They want to do an interview. They want to do an article on daddies. And every time it happened, I would say to myself, they don't know that I'm not very bright, and I'm not going to tell them.
Interesting.
And so then it just kept on going, and they're asking me to be on boards, and they're asking me, you know, to do all this community stuff, and I started thinking, maybe I'm not as dumb as I thought.
Right.
And then I started getting angry about it. And I started thinking, if they missed me in school, that if I really am a pretty bright guy and school totally missed me,
Right.
then how many other kids have they missed?
Exactly.
And I started getting mad about it. And so it has put me on a lifelong quest to do something about our education system. So I ran for governor, you know, on an education platform, and obviously I lost. But one of the people that worked on my campaign, I don't know if you ever knew her, Judy Galuzzo. Do you know that name? She's from Salem.
Yeah.
So Judy went to work, you know, for Craig Benson's campaign.
Okay.
And she told Craig, she said, you really ought to talk to Fred about education. So he called me up and came over to the house, and we sat down and talked, and about, you know, about education, and, you know, what my ideas for education were, and you know, he seemed to really like what I was saying, and that that it's up to me, you know, we're going to tip this thing over. We're going to create a new education system, and you know, and he liked it. Asked me to come work for his campaign. I asked him something. I think you'll find this interesting. I said to him, I'd be interested in working for your campaign, but I'm going to tell you something that I want in return. Okay? I said, you get to choose. If you are elected governor, you get to choose who's who becomes the next chairman of the State Board of Education. I am not going to ask you to say that you'll give that to me. Here's the only thing I'm going to ask you. Watch me work for the campaign. You decide whether you like my style and like the ideas, and when it comes time for you to select that person, just know I'm going to have my hand in the air. If you think I'm worthy, you pick me. If you don't, pick somebody else. He said, that's fair enough. And that's what happened.
That's what happened.
And then he got elected and asked me to become chair of the state board. And he charged me with redesigning public education, a charge most people would have run screaming away from. But it was exactly the charge that I wanted. And he was just beautiful in how he framed it. He gave me 2 parameters. He said, I want you to start with a clean sheet of paper, and I want you to challenge everything.
Question everything.
Absolutely. So you know, my first day as chairman of the State Board of Education, now it's me and 6 Gene Shaheen appointees. I was the only Benson appointee. And they were not crazy that, you know,
I'm sure.
I was the new kid on their board.
Right.
And it was like, you know,
Yeah.
they were not thrilled about
So that
this.
that's not good.
So anyway, so I said to them, Governor wants me to redesign the system. I'm not telling you I know what that looks like, but I'm a 60s kind of guy who was taught to question authority.
Exactly.
And I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and we'll see where that goes. And so I had been, when I was appointed by Governor Gregg in the 90s,
Yep.
that I got on the board because there was this huge fight over a document that I had no idea what it was, called the Minimum Standards for Public School Approval, ED 306. And it is how New Hampshire defines its public education system. Everything, it's got, what size the classrooms will be, what subjects will be taught, the length of the school year, the length of the school, everything you can think of, the subjects are all in that minimum standards document. And so my first day, I got assigned to go to this meeting in Exeter, on a meeting about the minimum standards. And when I got there, this is a 95-degree July day, and there were 300 angry people.
Wow.
And it was like, whoa.
Wow.
And
Wow.
they were angry about the minimum standards. And so for me, I said, I know nothing.
Right.
I just got here. And then like 10 days later, another meeting in Salem, about 700 angry people. And in the summertime.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it was like, holy mackerel, they have, set off a firestorm here. So the chairman of the state board at the time was Judy Thayer from Manchester. And I said to Judy, give me one meeting, I'll fix the whole thing. She said, you think so? I said, yeah. She said, okay. So she gave me authorization to hold a meeting. And
Now, you weren't the chair at this
no,
time,
I was
right?
just a
So you
member.
were
It was the newest member
of the board. Okay.
So I called up all the associations. I called up the Superintendent's Association, principals, school boards, teachers. Called them all up, told them what I was doing. Called the Taxpayers Association. Called some conservative groups too. Said, who wants to be on this thing? We're going to all sit down and we're going to have a civil conversation. And we'll talk about this. And so we met at the Legislative Office Building in Concord, and we defined what the biggest issues were. We set people off in groups to talk about, you talk about this issue, you talk about this issue. Came back together. We, when they came back when they had a solution, when they had and I made sure the groups were balanced so that there were, as many on the left as there were on the right, so that but they're charged with, they got to come back with a solution. They came back. We adopted what they said, brought it to the state board. All of it passed, and so that was my first experience with it. But I knew that the document was still a dinosaur,
right?
And that and that what we did was we kind of put a little patch job on it. We really didn't fix this thing.
Right.
And so when I came back, I thought, let's go back to the minimum standards. So that's what I told the board. Let's go back to the minimum standards. And so this person says to me, one of the people on, I'm meeting with the highest level education folks in the state. I'm meeting with members of the commissioner's cabinet and members of the state board of ed. And somebody says, let's get through the easy stuff, like the school calendar. We're not going to change anything there. And I remember this little Craig Benson popped up on my shoulder and whispered away, challenge everything. So
how did they determine, the number of days and the credits and?
Yep. So that's what So now, I said, let's talk about the the calendar, because we ended up changing it from 180 days to 990 hours, and hoping to give schools the kind of flexibility to make up their own schedule. That's what the hope was. It really didn't get the job done, and I just led the effort to pass a new set of rules in December 12th of last year.
Okay.
So hopefully there's going to be more creativity that'll come out of that, because we put a lot more flexibility inside the regulations. But the amazing stuff started to happen when I was just sitting there, and I thought to myself, I've had this question that's been bothering me forever, and I thought, what better group to ask than this? So I said, I got a question that I'd like some clarification on. I said, we give credit toward graduation for successfully completing gym class, physical education, but if you're on the gymnastics team, you don't get credit. I said, tell me the logic in that so that I can understand it. Silence. And so I said, look, I'm not telling you I'm an expert. I was a physical education minor when I was in college, and it just seems to me that the sports teams are more hours, higher level of skill, teamwork, sportsmanship, and the kids who participate on sports teams are the ones who are more likely than not to continue physical activity beyond high school. And isn't that the goal? So how come gym class counts, sports teams don't count?
Yeah,
so somebody,
good question, actually.
So somebody said, maybe we should count the sports teams. I said, that's okay with me. Is that okay with everybody else? Everybody else is kind of looking around the room for approval.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then the question just popped into my head. And I said, what if the school doesn't have a gymnastics team, but there's a gymnastics academy downtown, and the exact same lessons and skills that would have been learned in the school if they had the gymnastics team are going to get learned at this gymnastics academy. So let me see if I understand this. If you learn the desired lessons and skills inside the school, that counts toward graduation. If you learn the exact same lessons and skills outside the school, doesn't count. I said, what do we care more about? Do we care more that the school is the first-hand deliverer of the learning experience, or do we care more that our kids learn regardless of the source of the learning? Every person sitting around that table said we care more about our kids learning. And it was like, of
course, yeah.
Oh, I was waiting for a bolt of lightning to come. I said, is this sacrilege? And so we started talking about kids going to France for the summer, learning to speak French. Can they get a foreign language credit for that?
Yeah.
Kids working at the car dealership, can they get, learning automotives? Yeah. Can they get an automotive credit for that? The planetarium, get a space science credit. All of these other ways that you can learn these, different subjects other than sitting in a classroom. And that was the start of what we now call competency-based learning.
Okay.
And so we put it in the regulations that all of these ways to learn beyond the walls of the school are there for you. And
now, is that still being done now?
Absolutely, but but it hasn't gotten as far as it needs to.
It's still in school, probably, right? Most of the
yes,
credits?
it is. It is. Yeah,
I mean, have they taken, your idea of going outside the school?
Yeah, it's happening.
It is.
But we're still
not there.
Not there. Not where I want it to be. So this is my brochure. I have a nonprofit that I run called the National Center for Competency-Based Learning.
And people should know that. We'll say that again later and how they can reach you. But
and I'll show you this, and then I'll point it to the camera too. But this is our education system as everybody knows it.
Okay.
It's done in circles. The big circle is classrooms. This is where learning, just like what you were just saying.
Yeah.
Then there's a small circle that's online.
Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. That would be bigger, you would think.
And then there's this tiny circle, experiential.
It is very small, by the way.
Very small. Okay. But what school needs to become is those 3 circles need to be the same size. They need to meet in a Venn diagram so that for virtually every kid, sometimes they're in a classroom, sometimes they're online, sometimes they're in a real world environment, and that's the system that I work toward getting. We're still too much in the old model where most of it's classrooms.
Yep.
But
So, and children, they learn differently too.
Yes.
I mean, so it would seem to me if you have a student or child who doesn't do well in the classroom, that giving them the opportunity to do it outside and still get credits has to be a great thing for the parents and for the kid.
Absolutely. So, I have a bunch of the different concepts that I have around this. One of them is called 10,000 Mentors.
Okay.
And so it's, we put in the state regulations, ED 30604, that schools' responsibility to harness all available community resources, including businesses, nonprofits, talented individuals for the benefit of student learning. So we've done that much of a job on it so far. We haven't done that much, but it needs to be this.
Right.
And so, and I brought to the Manchester School District years ago, when the superintendent of schools was Dr. Livingston. I don't know if you remember that name.
I don't.
Dr. Deborah Livingston, and she, I brought to her a component of this 10,000 mentors concept, 1,000 mentors for Manchester. So we took it to the Manchester Board of School Committee, and they unanimously said yes. And then she left the district a couple of months later. So
Do you know? I remember Juliana Cooper.
Yes.
Liberty Harbor
Yep.
Academy.
Yep.
So I was involved with that a
Yep.
little bit, and that was out of the box thinking too.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I thought that was pretty good. I guess what I really I'm a little concerned.
And
with,
she used to, getting the kids out in the community.
Oh
was,
yeah, that was part of it.
That was
get mentors from the automotive end and
absolutely.
cooking. It was great.
And
it was great.
and that's that's what we want to do. We want that on on the public schools. That to me, it's like I want our public schools to be the best they can. That's my goal.
So you were a public school student, so was I.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it's like that's where the kids are, right? The kids are in the public schools.
For the most part.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a 90-10, right? I mean,
Yeah.
So.
It seems to. I mean, we've had other people on this show that are homeschoolers.
Yeah.
We've had other people have organizations that
Sure.
are trying to change things and things like that. And it seems to me that there's a move toward moving out of the classroom to be homeschooled. But, you're right. If you had this model, they would get credit for that anyway.
Exactly.
It's not going to get stopped
exactly. There. No. So we have to have a system that we have to have a system. The kids like the two of us love. You and I both love learning.
Absolutely.
We didn't know that in high school.
No, we didn't.
We hated it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? Because we felt like we got to learn this for the teacher, right?
Exactly.
And so I don't want the kids learning it for the teacher.
Right.
I want them learning it for themselves.
Exactly.
I want them to feel like this is not the school's education. This is not the teacher's education.
So you want
this
the
is
student
my
to
education.
drive the
Absolutely.
process, right?
Imagine a system where a kid could go, I want Mrs. Jones for English, but I want to use my karate lessons for my physical education. I want to play in a rock band for my music.
Yeah.
I want to do world history online. I want to,
Yeah.
all of the above.
I want to study language in Italy.
Exactly, all of the
that.
above.
I love that.
And then, and I don't have to sit in class for 180 days. I have to prove to you that I learned.
Right.
And so, so that's what a lot of what we did with this set of regulations that just passed.
Yeah.
Here's a
Now,
thing.
what did you go through to get that passed? Did it have to go through the legislators?
It took
or-
us 4 years.
4 years.
4 years. There's a legislative component. It has to
A
go.
part of it.
Yeah, as part of it, has to go through the JALCAR. You know JALCAR?
Yeah, JALCAR, sure.
Yeah, Joint Legislative
Yep.
Committee on Administrative Rules.
Yep.
Has to go through JALCAR. So, and I want to tell you that what I refer to as the Progress Prevention Squad, they were there fighting us every step of the way.
Really?
And oh yeah, and so.
So what was so recently the new President Trump has said he wants the states to handle all education. How do you feel about that?
I have yet to find any of my educator friends doing a woe is me about the Department of Education.
Okay.
I think that, when we created the Department of Education, if we thought that it was going to, make our kids smarter, our test scores were going to go up, that didn't happen.
Right.
So
Right.
so it fed us information. There were things that it did that that were probably good things, but that it might get done by some other agency.
Yeah.
And but I don't see folks crying that this is a disaster.
Yeah. I don't want to make this political. What
Yeah.
I want to do is try to understand. So, let's suppose we adapted this system here,
Yeah.
right? And the family
Fully, because it's in our regulations now.
Right.
It's in the regulations.
But they move. They go to another state. Are they going to, it doesn't have this program set up.
So let me tell
Then
you
what
this:
happens?
we were the first state in the United States to plant our flag that we are going to move away from this old system of a time-based model
Okay.
and move to a competency-based model.
Yeah, that's the key to it.
So,
then.
and now every state in the United States, since we did it, is now moving in the same direction.
Oh, wow.
We're farther down the road than most. Still not nearly as far as I want to be.
Sure.
This is how I describe it. Okay, that if you can imagine the system that we all know, that the constants about that system are time and place.
Okay.
It's 180 days a year. Okay?
Right.
It's you move on by age. As long as you get at least a D, you move on to the next grade, right?
Right.
Time and place, constants. Variable is learning. Kids get A's, B's, C's, D's, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we switch it. We make time and place the variable,
Okay.
and we make learning the constant. We say you want to move. So we put in this new set of regulation, we put in learning levels, not just grade levels, learning levels. So you advance in the degree of difficulty of your work based on what learning level you're on. So that, now the kid gets a D or a C and really doesn't know, and now he gets kicked up to a higher level of stuff and he's lost again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So we, we say, no, we're gonna advance kids based on learning level. And the learning
Despite age.
despite age, I don't care. So you're going to find some kids at learning level 5 in English and learning level 3 in math.
Right.
That's going to be a common thing. The kids are going to be on different levels.
Yep, got
And
it.
So I'm excited about that. And we and this is an interesting one that we got some pushback on, including from some folks from Manchester. We largely removed the word instruction
Okay.
and substituted the word learning.
Okay.
And we said,
So why would you get pushback on that?
well, what does it mean? You're not going to, it's not about instruction? No, it's not about instruction. It's about learning. Yeah, but what about, this is instruction. That's what we do. Yes, I know that's what you do. That's the old system. where classrooms are 95%, right?
Yep.
I said, that's the old model. The new model is learning happens anytime, any place. We don't care where the learning comes from.
I love it.
Right?
Yep.
And so, you know, it'll still have instruction, but it's not going to be as pervasive as what it is now, because it's not the only way kids can learn. Kids can
Right.
learn online. They can learn. They can do an independent study. They can do what they call these ELOs, these internships in different
Yep.
companies, and all these ways that learning can happen. It's not all about a teacher standing in front of the room and conveying content to the kids. I mean, to me, and I was a teacher.
Right.
I love the thought of great teachers.
Yep.
But I also know that since the 1950s, when kids are asked for one word to describe school, the word that wins every
Boring.
year is boring.
Is it?
It is. I didn't even have to
No,
prompt
it
you
was
on
not-
it.
no.
It is, but it's like that cannot be.
Yeah.
That our kids have to be excited about learning, right?
Right.
And so how do you make this exciting? So that's what I work for. One of the projects that I have going on right now that I'm really excited about, I would like to create what I call passion for learning schools. I want schools, any school, to be willing to declare themselves a passion for learning school. I want them to, the concept of a passion for learning school is that one of the primary functions of that school is to ensure that every single kid in their school is going to be passionate about learning something. I don't even care what it is. I don't care if this kid is sharks and this kid is Star Wars and that kid is whatever, you name
Yeah.
it. And I don't care if it's something that the school traditionally teaches or not. I don't care. I want kids getting up in the morning excited about what they're going to learn that day. And that school is going to, as a primary function of that school, is going to work to foster that passion in kids. And to me, you get kids, you know, I know what it was like for me, you know, as a, you know, we both know what it was like to feel bored in school, right?
Yeah.
When, you know, when I first started playing in a rock band, I had some Manchester, they're all Manchester guys that were in my rock band. And one of my Manchester guys, he came to band practice one day and told me about a kid that needed bail money.
Bail money.
Bail money.
Oh boy.
And he had a guitar that he needed to sell.
Ah, okay.
And so I knew the guitar was worth more than what he was selling it for. So the first thing I thought of, I could sell that guitar and make money.
Sure.
So I said, I'll buy that guitar. So next band practice, he came with the guitar. I gave him the money.
The kid got out. And
Yep, right. and then I sold the guitar. I made $50 back in 1966, and I, you know, I immediately thought, okay, I used to work at my godfather's factory in Lawrence and make $2 and change an hour, and I thought, how many hours would I have to work in order to make that $50 that I just made selling this guitar? The clouds parted, the sun shone through. I was like, oh my God, I have to sell guitars. And that was the start of Daddy's Junky Music.
And that's how it started.
That's how Daddy started. And I'll tell you.
Now, do you still have the band at that time?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all
And you know, I mean, I didn't actually open the store till '72, so I was doing it out of my house for a while.
Okay.
I would put ads in those bargain newspapers,
yeah.
you know, that I would buy used stuff, and people would come to my house and they'd bring me stuff and I'd buy it. And,
So that was your passion, was music.
oh yeah, I loved rock and roll.
Yeah.
I told you, if they'd asked any kid in my high school, it
would
was
be
the most
Fred.
passionate. It would be Fred. So when all of a sudden I thought I could make money selling guitars? Oh my God, that's money for nothing.
Right.
And
Right.
so I remember I still have my books, my accounting as primitive as possible from those days. Okay,
Yeah.
but I couldn't go to sleep at night. I was so excited about it. I'd be up till past midnight every night working, and I could try this, and I could try that, and this guitar, what I need, So, I mean, I had all these ideas about what I could do to grow my business. I didn't want to go to sleep. I was just so excited about filling my head with as much knowledge as I could about what I could do to make this idea of selling guitars better. And I want every kid to know that passion. And it's like, I mean, when you feel that, and there are ways to make it happen, I think that the answers to what it will take for every kid to feel excited about learning, the answers are in the kid's head, and the answers are available for free for the asking. What we have to do is know how to ask the questions of these kids, know what to do with the answers, because they'll tell us everything we need to know, and then we need to take that information and see what we can do to help students with a path that will get them really excited. Some kids know already. They know, just give me more of this.
So there are a lot of parents that know the passion of the child,
Yep.
but are kind of blocked because that's not how schools are run.
Right, and I don't want it that way.
So you would set up, there's
I want schools. One of the things that we did with these rules intentionally is to put more power in the hands of the students and the parents,
Okay.
so this is shared. This education, the power was really in the hands of the schools, right? I don't want all the power in the hands of the schools. Still some power, yes, but I want it shared with the parents and the kids. I want the kids having a real say in what their education looks like.
So how would you educate the teachers? I mean, how do you get them to that point where they feel very strongly about this type of program where, you have to instill their passion, take what the kids are telling you, and then go forward with it?
So let's take the that 1,000 mentors from Manchester concept that I talked to you about. So if Manchester took that on again, it's Manchester's job to go out into the community and find 1,000 mentors, and they're here. They are here. I mean, this is a great town.
Yeah.
There's so many resources here. I remember talking to David Rogers. You know David?
Sounds familiar.
He works with Dean Kamen.
Okay.
Okay.
I know who he is. Yeah.
So that whole First Robotics and Army.
And now growing parts of your body and knees and
incredible. So one of the things that he said to me one day when I'm talking to him about this concept, he said, we have in Manchester, the number's probably different these days. This was probably 3-4 years ago. He said to me, we have 600 of the best software engineers in the country sitting right here in Manchester.
Wow.
He said,
wow. At what Cayman's group, probably, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He said, the best private school in the state, Exeter probably, one of those schools.
Yeah.
Okay. The best private school in the state on their best day could not match what we have to offer the students of Manchester, and that's true. And
so were they doing internship programs?
They would do internships.
They haven't done that yet.
They've probably done some, but it hasn't been opened up enough.
So when you have these 1,000 mentors, you need a driver there. Somebody will.
Yep.
So the community could do that if you had enough people to sort of get it started, right?
Yep. We're doing it now. It's not like there's none happening. There are things happening, but it's not enough. So, because I feel like we're dabbling in it. that we're.
You want to jump in.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
tired of dabbling because we've done research on these what we call extended learning opportunities, and they're off the charts. They work so great, and we've done. There was a recent one. The most recent one that I saw was one done with a group in New Hampshire called the New Hampshire Learning Initiative, and they did it with Gallup. The Gallup
sure.
organization.
Yep.
So they did a study on career-connected learning experiences. Okay.
Yeah.
In measuring kids' engagement in school and their hopefulness for their future.
Oh, wow.
Okay? And the kids who are engaged in career-connected learning experiences, these ELOs,
Yep.
they are off the charts.
With their hope.
Yeah, with their hopefulness for their future and their engagement in school. So to me, when my team working on the regulations, I sit there and I hold that survey up to them and I say, isn't this, there's our instructions.
Right.
Get every kid engaged in, these outside of the school learning opportunities. But we've got to do it in a manner that's not dabbling any longer.
Yeah.
That we got to do it in a way that it becomes a primary function of the system. That this notion of harnessing the resources of our community, and so to me, that's what needs to happen. You get this. So then you do this. Remember we talked about asking kids the questions, they give you the answer.
Yeah.
You have to have something to do with them, okay? A kid says, well, I'm interested in such and such. Oh, okay. Well, we have the C Science Center, we have FIRST Robotics, we have
Right.
this, we have this. And let the kid choose what he or she is interested in, and then they try it out. If it's not the right thing, we try something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you were talking about mentors. It's like best buddy mentors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who do that,
Yep.
So this sort of a better direction because it's geared on education rather than what they're doing now.
Sure.
Right now.
Yeah. I mean, it is. You'd like to think that the experience. I mean, and actually, just like that. I phrased that wrong. That study from Gallup showed that the importance of mentors is huge, and so let's do that. Let's make sure that we get our kids.
I've also noticed that if you have a history of something and you talk to a group of kids about your experience to
Yep.
get to where you are,
Yep.
that seems to motivate them as well. I don't
Sure.
care whether it's sports or whether it's a particular medical imaging or whatever it is.
Whatever
Once
it
you
is.
start doing that, you're going to get some of those kids to then tell you that's something I might be interested in
Exactly.
doing, right?
And excuse me.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of keeping these kids in state is increased
higher.
dramatically, because
wow.
a lot of kids leave.
Of course.
Because they think that New Hampshire doesn't have the kinds of opportunities
Right.
for them. But we put this paltry effort into harnessing those resources, that if we did that and we showed these kids that and connected them with mentors in the field that they're interested in, then all of a sudden it changes the picture. It's going to have a kid that's interested in automotives.
Yep.
You get him at a car dealership. He starts out with easy stuff, oil
Yeah.
changes and whatever, and then gradually starts working on better things.
And a lot of it's computerized now, so
Exactly.
it fits right into what they're doing, right?
Exactly, and what's going to happen when the car dealership or
They're looking
business.
for people to hire, right?
Exactly, they're going to tap these kids on the shoulder and say,
Yeah.
"Can you give me some hours? I'll pay you."
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a source of new employees. So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah,
And that's what we need to try to keep these kids here.
absolutely. So I have this other concept that I.
We've got about 5 minutes.
All right,
so
I'll
no, you don't have to do it quickly, but I want to make sure you get
Yep.
across to the viewers what how they can get involved maybe, or how they can reach
Great.
you.
Love
so
it.
show me what we got here.
So called ED squared, okay?
Okay.
Education-driven economic development. And I believe that this is an opportunity for a new New Hampshire advantage, that I think we can create a system that where we tell businesses in and outside of the state, you come to New Hampshire, we will make you a full partner in our education system. We will become an important part of your recruiting. We will match kids' interest to your the opportunities that are available in your company. And to me, looking for employees is a huge part of the future for companies. And if we don't do this right, we risk losing folks like Dean Kamen. We can't afford to lose Dean Kamen, okay?
No.
So we need, the public school system, in my opinion, needs to be, in lockstep with Dean Kamen. We're going to get him those employees that he needs for his Army project, the employees that he needs for anything else he's doing. We want Dean Kamen growing his business right here in New Hampshire, keeping those kids right here in New Hampshire. So this,
this program, like you're talking about, the internship is kind of like the old on-the-job training type thing you did.
Yep.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah,
anyway.
it is.
Yeah,
it is. So it's really, but it's retooling how we look at education.
Yep.
And that to me it has the potential of being, I think, phenomenal for the state of New Hampshire. And and eventually every state is going to copy us, just like they copied us moving to competency-based learning. But some states may have even passed us in competency-based learning. And so this new set of regulations that just passed in December, I think that if we do the right job implementing them, that we have a chance to take this into the stratosphere.
That sounds great. That really does.
Yeah.
How can people reach you, or you have an email they can reach you at, or
it's,
just if you just.
It's F Bramante, FBRAMANTE at nccbl.org. F Bramante, BRAMANTE at nccbl.org. And I would love to hear from anybody. So we really need, I'm looking for 10,000 mentors. So, anybody who's out there, talented individuals, businesses, nonprofits, if you think you have something to offer, kids, for credit toward graduation, then this is an opportunity to get engaged. And it's exciting. So to me, it's exciting.
Yeah, I think, now I'm excited about
it.
Good,
thanks.
And I really think that this is the way we have to go.
Absolutely.
It just seems to me that we have so many kids that are kind of stuck in the current situation in schools. They were probably bored too.
Absolutely.
And now they're looking for something else. It's like the tech school. Some kids get to tech college in Concord. I mean, they're there and they're learning. They're out in the communities and doing stuff. New England College just put together a nursing program. They've got agreements with Concord Hospital and some of the others, and they actually get paid to do it. So it seems to me the way of the future, and I'm excited about some of the things you've said about hope, because that's eventually where they need to be. You have to have that passion inside of you. And I agree with you 100%.
Thank you so much. Let me the last piece.
Yeah,
okay?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, part of this Passion for Learning schools, they work to giving kids the opportunity to earn career-related credentials or degree while they're still in high school.
Yeah, that's
so that
great.
You tell me a kid's got a high school diploma. I have no idea.
So what does it mean? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't even know what that means. I can't tell you what what that kid knows or doesn't know.
Right.
You tell me you have an associate's degree in this or a welder's license or that or whatever. Now I kind of have an idea of what you know. Put these kids in a position where they finish their public school education, they can hit the ground running, possibly even knock 2 years off the cost of college.
Yep.
If we can do that for our public schools, then then the public's faith in public education will skyrocket, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Fred, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. Next
pleasure.
week we have I have another friend on, Chris Wolf, who's kind of a world traveler. He's got his own business, and he's a very interesting guy as well. So we'll see you next week, and I think Josh will be back. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.